Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Daily Politics. It's time for us to talk a bit of politics today as INEC has stepped into the over 2-year internal crisis within the PDP, one that has taken a different dimension since the much contested, much controversial convention in Ibadan that produced Tanimu Turaki as the new chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. As you have witnessed over the last couple of weeks, there is another set of people within the PDP who have now set up a caretaker committee to spearhead the affairs of the People's Democratic Party and, of course, backed by the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike. The INEC meeting makes it quite unprecedented because usually the regulator is an onlooker when these internal crises fester or linger, to use the words of Professor Joash Amopita, the INEC chairman. So let's bring in insiders who understand what is playing out and who can tell us whether this is the beginning of the end of the internal crisis within the PDP. Joining me on the program is Barrister Ukechukwu Osuoha. He's a member backed by the Wike, member of the Abdurrahman-led National Working Committee or Caretaker Working Committee backed by the FCT Minister. He was also part of those who attended the INEC meeting earlier in the day. Also joining me is PDP Chieftain, Comrade Daboikiabo Warmate, to provide some context to the latest development concerning the PDP. Gentlemen, good evening to both of you, and thank you so much for joining me on the program this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Barrister, let me start with you. What was the atmosphere like going to INEC today, and is this going to change anything?
Thank you so much. I have to state that today's meeting was a very good one because INEC, was so proactive. They were good. They did something good by bringing the two parties together. I mean, to come together and for an interactive section. And I was there present. Even the parties, the way they conducted, everybody conducted themselves, was in order. Because INEC said that being a regulatory body, an institution, a federal agency that regulates the political parties in Nigeria, and also that actually conducts election in Nigeria, that they had to call the both parties. Because there's no need people playing, kind of saying that there's no problem or there's no crisis. You have to admit the fact that there's a problem, and then for you to solve a problem. So today's meeting is a very good one because both parties, especially the other group who claimed or purportedly claimed that they were elected in a convention.
Just like your group.
My own group, was because there cannot be a vacuum. Because the former NWC, the tenure expired by 10th of December of this year. And then there was need to, constitute a national caretaker committee. And that was what happened to run the affairs of the party and put the house in order. But what I learned, there's a takeaway today. I was able to find out when the INEC chairman was asking, there was what he said, because they're being a regulatory body, that they're supposed to be neutral. But in this instance, because there are consequences. Right now, there are upstream elections that are coming up. One is the Abuja FCT election that comes and is built to take place by February next year. And also, Ekiti State governorship election that's supposed to come up by June next year. And then that of Osun State by July. That if they play and keep silent, there are consequences. Because you have to look at, the issues that you want to do election, that they are tired of after spending money and doing election and electing people, and people will go to court and nullify what they have done. So they were able to look at the issues from the both angles, especially was there a convention? Are you hearing me? And he looked at it and said that before that purported convention, there are two subsisting court judgments of the Federal High Court that said there should be no convention. Are you hearing me? And then they now looked at the fact that some people went to Oyo State High Court and obtained an interim ex parte order. An interim order, even the INEC chairman said that it's a 7-day order that lasts for 7 days, or highest you can extend it to 14 days. That
we have decided
there's no way it can supersede or nullify or set aside a court of...
Is that your understanding of what Professor Joa said?
No, he was saying,
what he was saying,
what he was saying, that if you claim there was a convention, are you hearing me? That we were analyzing all the scenario and the narratives of the both parties. Are you hearing me? And even went further, he said that there's consequence that if we should do what he was expecting, that there have been conflicting correspondences coming from the both parties, and that was why they cannot accept any correspondence, because the national secretary, whose name is still in the INEC portal, Senator Anyanwu, is on one side, and this group is on the other side, and every correspondence you must sign and send or notices to INEC must be signed by the secretary and chairman, and these things are making INEC to get confused. He said that what they are is advising right now, because the matter is pending before a court of appeal. He asked us and the both parties, have you actually done the needful by sending, applying for stay of execution and transmitting all your record of appeal? That he is advising that we should go and expedite action and let there be a kind of accelerated hearing of the matter, so that these things can be concluded, so that they will now know their stand. So that they will move forward from there. That's what we achieved today.
Right. And comrade, on face value, it looks like remedy. But the reality is that INEC cannot override the courts, especially when the cases have not been determined yet. So what do you take away from today's meeting and what it says about the lingering leadership crisis in your party?
Well, once again, thank you for having me. You see, let me start by commending the INEC chairman for this initiative, for not being an onlooker, but decided to come up with a way trying to persuade the both groups to, look for a common ground to address the issue facing the party. But having said that, let me start by saying that in the eyes of the law, there was no convention. Now, I'll prove that. If you look at section 251 of the Nigerian Constitution. I just want to read that. Section 251 of the Nigerian Constitution. It is expressly clear that it is above the jurisdiction of the State High Court. There are two judgments from the Federal High Court, Abuja, and there is a judgment from the State High Court, Ibadan. And there is no way, following section 251 of the Nigerian Constitution, that a State High Court judgment. I want to read this, the last sentence of that section. It said, the Federal High Court shall have and exercise jurisdiction to the exclusion, that is the place, to the exclusion of any other court in civil causes and matters. Now look at subsection 1, P, Q, and R. P said, the administration or the management and control of the federal government or any of its agency is a jurisdiction of the Federal High Court. Now, look at Q. It said, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the operation and interpretation of this Constitution insofar as it affects the federal government or any of its agencies. So there is no dispute to the fact that in the eyes of the law, the convention was not conducted. Now looking at section 29, subsection 5 of the Electoral Act, looking at section 76, looking at section 84:14, you will discover that it was clear, just like lawyers will say in the court, that they'll tell my lord, this question of the lawyer is leading the witness. This thing, Electoral Act as amended 2022 has given us that leading to know that when it comes to issue like this, it should be the Federal High Court. The only two places in the whole of the Electoral Act that the State High Court was mentioned was in section 29, subsection 2, talking about getting affidavit if you can't get it from a Federal High Court. And also talking about local government, that is section 145, talking about local government election. That is the area. So if you look at this, you can say from the point of law that there was no convention.
I mean, it's fair to say that that's your understanding of its application, but the other side of the argument has also been made about the setup that led to the convention itself and the local standing of the people who instituted those cases, for instance, whether it's the Jigawa State governor, the former Jigawa State governor. Let me get to the question.
Okay.
The question here is, obviously, when INEC steps in as a regulator and expresses concern about correspondences, because we've seen INEC coming out to dispute some of the correspondences around the Ekiti exercise, around what's going to come up in Osun State and all of the concerns that it has raised, which was re-echoed earlier in the day by the chairman itself. It does look like, whereas the courts could, in a sense, give clarification through the judgments, which will then be probably appealed, and we could end up with the Supreme Court. There's a lot of time the PDP could save itself if it settles this matter out of court. Is that even a possibility at this point? Because it does look like one party in the crisis right now is trying to hijack the People's Democratic Party.
You see, what I want to say about that, if you talk about the process, right now we're talking about the case because it's in court. Okay. Now you're talking about the possibility of out-of-court settlement. That was what the INEC chairman was trying to advise. If you listen to his speech, the both parties, and he put forward to them why it is expedient for them to do that, considering the 21st February 2026 FCT election, June Ekiti, July Osun State election, bringing that to the conscience of the parties to make them understand that you need to settle this out of court. But in the event you don't want to settle it out of court, go to the court, appeal court, and plead for the case to be heard, as later hearing. So this issue will be addressed because it also affects us. Financially, it will affect our budget and also in terms of human resources. Because if after we have conducted the election, they now declare a particular group that they won and their candidate and were not in the ballot, it's an issue. And that's why the INEC, I believe, chairman, in his wisdom, conveyed the both parties to appeal to them. And people like us want to also use this opportunity to appeal to them. If they should come to the table, there is nothing that they cannot discuss. They are leaders of the party, and we are looking up to them. And we expect that if issues like this come up, they should be able to address it. But in the event they are not able to address it, they should approach the court. And I want to use this opportunity to appeal to the Court of Appeal, because it's our democracy we are talking about, not just PDP, that they should expedite action as regarding this political case affecting not just PDP and other political parties.
Right, so you wanted to jump in?
Yes. What I want to say is this. I'm a lawyer and I've been in practice. There are, even a layman, there are, basic principles and rules guiding our, in law. You can't put something on top of nothing and expect it to stand. We are talking about procedural law. We are talking about substantive law, a convention. And I was there today when I was present in that meeting. And I thank God the respected chairman of INEC is a senior advocate of Nigeria and a professor of law. We equally had other senior advocates like the chairman Turaki and even our national legal advisor Jibade.
It's good that you actually call him chairman.
No, what I said, because that's what he claimed to be. Because let me just give you an answer. Like my brother was saying, the Oyo State High Court judgment. There was no judgment in Oyo State High Court. Even the INEC chairman pointed out, when you talk about...
nobody claimed it was a judgment, it was an expert order.
The way you said expert order, even the INEC chairman pointed out that the other party was not notified. When you talk about the expert order, is an injunction, is a kind of to preserve the rest of the subject matter pending the determination of the substantive matter. The other party has not even been notified. So there was no order. And the INEC chairman pointed out today that there's no way an order, expert order, will supersede or set aside a judgment of the competent.
Do you understand, Barrister, do you understand, Barrister, why people who are just onlookers, observers, who have questioned the motivation of both the Federal High Court and the Osun State High Court in what played out? Because we saw a minimum of 4 judgments and expert orders in just 1 week in the build-up.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you, like today, I listened to the chairman of INEC. we were planning for a national convention. And there were some irregularities or anomalies
alleged
that were playing out. Some people approached the court, the Federal High Court, and both parties were asked to come and defend themselves in a court. There was a trial, and at the end of the day, the court gave a judgment. Not even one. Even the INEC chairman said it today. The last judgment was an evening before the purported convention. Which
is actually unusual.
Yes, that was why INEC decided to obey it. It was a judgment of the court. And you now went to a state high court, like my brother has stated. INEC is a federal agency. There's no way a state high court has no jurisdiction over a federal agency. And that's why the other day, when they started hearing the substantive matter, INEC went and they raised the preliminary objection that they are not bound by the jurisdiction of the state high court. And they are now delisted. The judge, the court are now delisted INEC. What does it import? What does it the implication is that there was no order.
But if that is the case, Barry, if that is the case, right? You also are well aware of the provision that it is not a must for INEC to be at that convention.
No, they said it, but whether they were there or not, let me tell you, they're a regulatory body. And
but it's not a must. Just to be clear.
But they're supposed to observe. And you must.
They're supposed to, but it's not a must.
But he pointed out today that there's a procedure.
Right.
The way, after that judgment of the Federal High Court, what he expected is for you to apply for stay of execution and go for appeal. And not to obtain an order, an ex parte order, and say proceed for a convention. And after that convention, let me tell you, if you say that those you elected are legitimate and they are lawful, why did they now, as I'm speaking to you, it was even raised today before INEC chairman. Even INEC chairman had to call their lawyer, INEC lawyer, that they have applied to Federal High Court in Oyo. Are you aware? Then asking the Federal High Court to now compel INEC to recognize them. How do you tell? In 2021, when I was elected as Deputy National Legal Advisor, we were there in Eagle Square. INEC was present. They observed the convention. At the end of the day, the list was given to them, and they recognized the whole members of the NWC. Are you hearing me? Right. So now you said you were elected, and you're claiming, purportedly claiming, and you are now applying to court to compel INEC to recognize you. But for what transpired today, if they are sensible enough, even that their chairman, Turaki, was even asking INEC that he should be, there was a word he used, he should be, that he should use common sensical to address this issue or settle issue. Okay. In our law, there's nothing like emotion. There's nothing like in law in Nigeria. Law is law. And law is not, law is not a respecter of anybody. Are you hearing me? Right. So if you do things right and in accordance with the law, you will not have an issue. Do you understand my point?
Right.
But if you go against the law, there's no cutting corners. If you cut corners, the whole thing will come back and snowball, and you will be affected. That is what is happening today. Are you hearing me?
All right. And comrade, just coming back to you, we've seen people like Saraki say, listen, the PDP is going to bounce back. There is every chance that this could stop the bleeding and things like that. But you also understand that a battle line has been drawn between the people backing the Tinubu-led National Working Committee and the people backing the Abdurrahman-led caretaker National Working Committee of the PDP. What is your projection about how this whole thing ends? Because it does look from the outside looking in that both parties are headed for a collision course. There will be no chance of a truce, as many people would hope to see.
Okay, let me start by pointing out something first before I go to this. You see, when the zoning committee of PDP met in Lagos, I raised an issue then that the number one citizen of PDP from the south, like him, hate him, is the number one citizen. That is the person of Right Honorable Kingsley Ogunduchinda. Was not in that meeting, was not invited. And I raised the issue. That is the most ranking public officer of PDP extraction from the entire south. He was not in that meeting. And after that, he addressed press. That was one of the issues that fermented this crisis we are talking about, the zoning issue. But let me go to what you're saying. See, I want to commend the statement of the former respected Senate President, His Excellency Senator Raki, for saying that PDP will bounce back. Let me tell you, truly, I believe that PDP will bounce back. You know that after every war, peace, everybody must come to the peace table. You can see what is happening between Russia and Ukraine. At the end, we'll come to the peace table. We agree or not, whether the court nullifies it or not, we will end up at the peace table. So I believe same thing, or I'm that optimistic, just like Saraki, that PDP will surely bounce back. And I want to say that this is one of the phases. We've gone through this. It's a different coloration, but we've gone through this kind of, I would prefer to call it interest wrangling, not crisis. And you know, I always interest wrangling.
It's okay for you to be in denial.
No, I'm not in denial. No, right. It's interest wrangling. Not that you at least say don't call it crisis, but to me it's interest wrangling.
Losing governors left, right, and center.
No. Losing governors. I agree with you. See, we have lost governors. You see, let me let you know. The name said People's Democratic Party, not Governors Democratic Party. We should get that clear. Yes, the governors contribute money. Let's be frank. I don't want to come and quote. They contribute money to the party. Outside that, if every PDP member I speak today, the party is taking back to the people and they pay their dues. No PDP governors pay dues. Nobody pays dues. The governor just come give the party money. If every member is paying their dues, as stipulated in section 7 of the Constitution, I'm telling you, we have fun to run the party. If governor decamp, it will not even affect the party.
So now your party is likely going to go broke again.
No, we are not going to go broke. Right. We still have governors. We still have how many governors? We are not going to go broke.
You can count them on one hand.
Even though we have one honest governor, it's better than having 10 cowards as governors that will be in the party and betray the party.
Is that how you describe the defectors? Cowards?
Yes. How will you not appreciate a party that gave you the platform to be who you are today, no matter what the circumstances is?
All right. Chief, we have just under a couple of seconds.
Okay.
Well, what did you want to add?
So my own take is this, like you asked us if the PDP is still going to bounce back. And I promise you, and I'm so optimistic that it will bounce back, because in the first instance, there was no convention. The people that claimed or purportedly claimed they were elected are not legitimate. So already the party has constituted a national caretaker committee by INEC, and they are now steering the affairs of the party. As I'm speaking to you, they have even put up a timetable by January to set up a notice and then begin to conduct Congress. Even today, I was listening to the chairman of INEC when he said, did you do those congresses that we learned that even NEC asked you to do, and the court say go, and the Federal High Court say go and conduct congresses. So by January, we are going to conduct congresses in all the states where it has not been conducted, and we go for a very authentic and legitimate convention that will produce national officers of the party. Like my brother said, even today after the meeting, the national acting chairman and the secretary, they addressed the press and they said that there's need. We are welcoming all those people. Everybody should come back, who dialogue and they negotiate and they reconcile. At the end of the day, the party will be stable. Nigerians love PDP, and PDP will move forward in the name of Jesus. That's what I'm telling you.
All right. I mean, you're allowed to be this optimistic about the near future, but to each his own, isn't it? Gentlemen, thank you so much for the analysis and, of course, for being a part of the conversation.
Thank you, my dear moderator, for having us.
Thank you.
It's been a wonderful time.
Good to see
you. Thank you so much.
Right, and that is a wrap on tonight's edition of the program. Daily Politics returns next week, Monday, live at 8 p.m. Exclusive as always on Trust TV. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. For myself and the rest of the team, thank you for joining us. Good evening.